Archie Moore era. The modern light heavyweight championship lineage begins in the early 1950s with Archie Moore, the longest reigning world light heavyweight champion in history. Although he had been one of the division's best fighters for years, Moore did not receive a true world title opportunity until late in his career, after spending more than a decade as a top contender avoided by champions. He finally won the title on December 17, 1952, defeating Joey Maxim by 15-round unanimous decision at the Arena in St. Louis, Missouri. Moore was 39 years old at the time, making him one of the oldest men ever to win the light heavyweight championship. His record was already in the neighborhood of 180 wins, with more than 20 losses and 10 draws, reflecting an unusually long and active career, even by mid-century standards. Once champion, Moore held the title for nearly a decade and made numerous successful defenses, facing contenders across the United States and abroad, rather than a single, recurring, mandatory rival. His ring style relied on a cross-arm defense, counterpunching, and attritional bodywork, often conceding early rounds before wearing opponents down late. He mixed defenses with heavyweight campaigns, meeting both light heavyweight challengers and much larger opponents, while still recognized as the 175-pound champion. One of the clearest examples of Moore's resilience came against Yvon Durell in December 1958. At the Forum in Montreal. Moore was knocked down 3 times in the first round, and again in the 5th by the hard-punching Canadian challenger, but survived, rallied, and dropped Durell 4 times before stopping him in the 11th round. The bout remains one of the most remarkable early deficit recoveries in light heavyweight title history. Harold Johnson served as one of Moore's biggest rivals during this period. Johnson defeated Moore several times in non-title bouts, but Moore won their championship meetings. While reigning at light heavyweight, Moore also pursued the heavyweight crown. His most famous attempt came against Rocky Marciano on September 21, 1955, at Yankee Stadium, where Moore scored a second-round knockdown before Marciano recovered to halt him in the 9th. Bob Foster era. Bob Foster seized control of the light heavyweight title on May 24, 1968, by knocking out Dick Tiger in the 4th round at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Tiger entered as the reigning WBA and WBC champion and one of the era's most durable fighters, but Foster's long reach, timing, and left-hand power produced a clean knockout that ended Tiger's reign and established Foster as the new champion. From the start of his reign, Foster's title bouts tended to follow a consistent pattern of range management followed by abrupt knockouts. Across 14 successful light heavyweight title defenses between 1968 and 1974, he recorded 10 knockouts and often finished opponents before the championship rounds. His jab set distance and forced challengers to reset, opening lanes for his left hook and straight right hand. Pressure fighters who tried to rush him often had to walk through clean counters to close the gap. While dominant at 175 pounds, Foster repeatedly moved up to test himself at heavyweight. He was stopped by Joe Frazier in 1970, and later by Muhammad Ali in 1972. Defeats that underscored the physical gap between elite heavyweights and even a great light heavyweight champion. Back at light heavyweight, however, Foster remained the division's central figure, defending against a rotating cast of contenders. Foster's reign ended in 1974 after a controversial draw with Jorge Ahumada. On June 17, 1974, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Foster and Ahumada went 15 rounds, with the judges scoring the fight even and Foster retaining his title. Unsatisfied with his performance and nearing the end of his career, Foster relinquished the light heavyweight championship, stepping away from the division without losing the belt in the ring. Michael Spinks era. Michael Spinks became light heavyweight champion on July 18, 1981, when he defeated Eddie Mustafa Muhammad by 15-round unanimous decision in Las Vegas to win the WBA title, scoring a knockdown in the 12th round. Spinks unified the division against Dwight Muhammad Qawi, then still often billed as Dwight Braxton, on March 18, 1983, at the Atlantic City Convention Center. In a 15-round bout billed as a clash for the undisputed light heavyweight championship, Spinks outboxed Qawi behind a jab and long-range work, winning a unanimous decision to add the WBC title to his WBA belt, and become the first undisputed light heavyweight champion since Bob Foster. As undisputed champion, Spinks put together a perfect title fight record in the division, officially standing at 11-0, 8 knockouts, in light heavyweight world title bouts. His defenses included wins over former and future champions such as Marvin Johnson and Eddie Davis, as well as mandatory challengers like Vonzell Johnson and Jim McDonald. Spinks' style blended height, reach, and a sharp right hand, nicknamed the Spinks Jinx, with a disciplined jab and cautious footwork. He could box conservatively over the distance, as he did against Kawi, or apply more pressure and power punching when opponents faded, as seen in his later defenses where he scored late knockdowns. By 1985, Spinks had effectively cleaned out the division, having defended the unified title against a series of leading contenders without a decisive rival emerging. Late in 1985, he vacated the light heavyweight championship to move fully into the heavyweight division, relinquishing his 175-pound titles outside the ring. Late 1980s era. After Michael Spinks vacated the light heavyweight title in 1985, the division entered a period without a single long-reigning, undisputed champion, with several fighters holding portions of the crown at different times. Donny Lalonde captured the vacant WBC light heavyweight title in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago on November 27, 1987, by stopping Eddie Davis in the second round. Lalonde's reign at 175 pounds was short-lived. On November 7, 1988, at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Sugar Ray Leonard halted Lalonde in the 9th round to win the WBC light heavyweight title. Virgil Hill emerged as the primary WBA light heavyweight champion of the period, winning the title from Leslie Stewart on September 5, 1987, via 4th-round technical knockout at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. Hill went on to defend the WBA belt repeatedly, most often by decision, against a series of contenders, giving the division a steady champ at 175 pounds through the late 1980s and early 1990s. Roy Jones Jr. era. Roy Jones Jr. moved into the light heavyweight division in 1996 after championship runs at middleweight and super middleweight, bringing elite speed and reflexes up to 175 pounds. On November 22, 1996, at the Ice Palace in Tampa, Florida, he defeated Mike McCallum by wide unanimous decision over 12 rounds to win the interim WBC light heavyweight title, later being elevated to full champion when the previous title holder vacated. McCallum, a 40-year-old multi-division former champion, pressed steadily but was largely kept at long range while Jones controlled distance and tempo. Jones first lost and then regained the WBC belt in a turbulent series with Montel Griffin in 1997. In their first meeting on March 21, 1997, at the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, Griffin outboxed Jones in spots and then won the title by 9th-round disqualification when Jones hit him while he was on one knee, handing Jones his first professional defeat. A rematch followed quickly on August 7, 1997, at Foxwoods in Connecticut, where Jones erased the controversy by knocking Griffin out in the first round to regain the WBC light heavyweight championship. Jones unified major portions of the division the following year. On April 25, 1998, at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum in Biloxi, Mississippi, he faced long-reigning WBA champion Virgil Hill and ended the bout in the 4th round with a single left hook to the body, breaking one of Hill's ribs and adding the WBA title to his WBC belt. The knockout reinforced Jones's reputation as a fighter who could dominate with speed and reflexes while still delivering sudden, spectacular finishes. Across his light heavyweight run from the late 1990s into the early 2000s, Jones compiled multiple defenses. His blend of hand speed, unorthodox counters, and ring generalship made him the era's defining 175-pound fighter and set the stage for his eventual move to heavyweight, where he later defeated John Ruiz for a version of the heavyweight championship before returning to light heavyweight. 2000s era. In the early 2000s, the light heavyweight division was defined by a shifting rivalry among Roy Jones Jr., Antonio Tarver, and Glenn Johnson. Tarver first challenged Jones on November 8, 2003, at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, where Jones, coming back down from heavyweight, won a majority decision in a 12-round tactical fight that many observers scored closer than the official tallies of 114 to 114, 116 to 112, and 117 to 111. The rematch took place on May 15, 2004 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Early in the second round, Tarver slipped the Jones advance and countered with a short left hand that dropped Jones heavily. Jones failed to beat the count, giving Tarver a knockout victory and the unified light heavyweight championship. Glenn Johnson then altered the picture by upsetting Jones and later facing Tarver. On September 25, 2004, in Memphis, Tennessee, Johnson knocked out Roy Jones Jr. in the 9th round to retain the IBF light heavyweight title, handing Jones a second straight stoppage defeat. Johnson met Tarver on December 18, 2004 at Staples Center in Los Angeles and won a 12-round split decision without a knockdown. Chad Dawson won his first world light heavyweight title on February 3, 2007 when he defeated Tomas Adamek by wide unanimous decision at the Silver Spurs Arena in Florida, capturing the WBC belt. Dawson, a southpaw with quick hands and good size for the division, used movement and volume punching to outbox Adamek over 12 rounds and establish himself as a new force at 175 pounds. Jean-Pascal later broke Dawson's unbeaten run and took a share of the championship. On August 14, 2010, at the Bell Center in Montreal, Pascal retained the WBC light heavyweight title by unanimous technical decision when their fight was stopped in the 11th round due to a cut over Dawson's eye caused by an accidental clash of heads, with Pascal ahead on all 3 scorecards at the time. Bernard Hopkins added a historic layer to the era by reclaiming a major light heavyweight belt in his late 40s. On March 9, 2013, at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, Hopkins outboxed unbeaten Tavoris Cloud over 12 rounds to win a unanimous decision and capture the IBF light heavyweight title, becoming, at 48 years old, the oldest boxer ever to win a recognized world championship. He later unified the IBF and WBA titles by defeating Babut Shumanov on April 19, 2014, extending his run as a top-level champion. Sergey Kovalev era. Sergey Kovalev won the WBO light heavyweight title on August 17, 2013, stopping undefeated Nathan Cleverly in the 4th round at the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff, Wales. Cleverly, 26-0 and fighting in his home country, was dropped twice in the 3rd round and then finished early in the 4th under heavy pressure, handing Kovalev his first world championship. Kovalev defended the WBO belt aggressively in his next 2 outings. On December 14, 2013, in Quebec City, he dropped Ismail Silak multiple times and secured a second-round technical knockout. 3 months later, on March 29, 2014, in Atlantic City, Kovalev scored 3 knockdowns against Cedric Agnew, including a final body shot knockout in the 7th round, and retained his title by clean stoppage. A unification bout followed on November 8, 2014, at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City against Bernard Hopkins, who entered holding the IBF and WBA light heavyweight titles. Kovalev knocked Hopkins down in the 1st round and dominated over 12 rounds to win a unanimous decision with scores of 120 to 107, 116 to 111, and 115 to 112, becoming the unified WBA, IBF, and WBO champion. Jean-Pascal challenged Kovalev in Montreal on March 14, 2015, for the unified titles. The fight went 8 rounds before Kovalev scored a knockdown in the 3rd and broke Pascal down for a technical knockout stoppage, with Pascal unable to continue under pressure. Their rematch on January 30, 2016, at the Bell Center saw a similar outcome. Kovalev overwhelmed Pascal with power punching over 7 rounds until Pascal's corner threw in the towel between rounds, ending Pascal's status as a top contender. Later in 2016, Kovalev defended the unified belts against Isaac Chilemba, outboxing the durable challenger for a 12-round unanimous decision. His next outing placed all major titles on the line in a unification against Andre Ward. Andre Ward era. Andre Ward entered the light heavyweight division in 2016 after a dominant super middleweight career, skipping tune-ups and challenging directly for unification against Sergey Kovalev. On November 19, 2016, at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Kovalev entered as the unified WBA, IBF, and WBO champion, holding all the division's major belts. Kovalev scored a second-round knockdown with a straight right hand as Ward advanced, taking an early lead on the scorecards. Ward recovered and shifted the fight to mid-range and inside exchanges, using short punches and clinches to slow Kovalev's jab-led pressure while landing in bursts. All three judges scored the 12-round bout 114 to 113 for Ward, a narrow, unanimous decision that handed Kovalev his first professional loss. The rematch took place on June 17, 2017, at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Ward adjusted by pressing forward more aggressively, working Kovalev's body with short hooks and uppercuts during extended clinches and along the ropes, while Kovalev threw fewer straight shots at full extension. In the 8th round, referee Tony Weeks stopped the fight after Ward landed a flurry of inside punches, capped by a right hand to Kovalev's chin. Kovalev protested low blows, but none were ruled fouls, awarding Ward a technical knockout. Ward held the unified light heavyweight titles without additional defenses following the rematch. On September 21, 2017, he announced his retirement from boxing, vacating the WBA, IBF, and WBO belts rather than losing them in the ring. Bivol-Beterbiev era. By the late 2000s, Archie Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol were both reigning light heavyweight champions under different sanctioning bodies, with no undisputed champion until they finally met years later. Beterbiev entered the championship picture first. On November 11, 2017, he won the vacant IBF light heavyweight title by stopping Enrico Colling in the 12th round in Fresno, California. The fight was competitive early, with Colling surviving sustained pressure before being dropped twice in the final round. Beterbiev entered the bout 12-0, all wins by knockout. Beterbiev expanded his championship reign through unification rather than routine defenses. On October 18, 2019, he faced undefeated WBC champion Alexander Gvozdyk in Philadelphia. Gvozdyk controlled stretches of the early rounds and was ahead on 2 of the 3 scorecards, but Beterbiev increased his output and physical pressure as the fight progressed, stopping Gvozdyk in the 10th round to unify the IBF and WBC titles. In June 2022, Beterbiev added the WBO belt by stopping Joe Smith Jr. in the 2nd round at Madison Square Garden, scoring multiple knockdowns before the referee halted the bout. At that point, Beterbiev held 3 major light heavyweight titles and had stopped every opponent he faced as a professional. Bivol's rise followed a different path. He won the WBA interim light heavyweight title on May 21, 2016, defeating Felix Valera by unanimous decision at Khimki Arena near Moscow. Bivol scored 2 knockdowns and won wide on the scorecards while controlling distance and tempo. He was elevated to full WBA champion in 2017 and began a series of title defenses. His most prominent victory came on May 7, 2022, when he defended the WBA title against Canelo Alvarez at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Bivol controlled range throughout 12 rounds, preventing prolonged pressure and winning a unanimous decision by scores of 115 to 113 on all 3 cards. From 2022 through 2024, the division remained split. Beterbiev continued defending his unified titles through stoppages, while Bivol remained unbeaten and active as WBA champion. On October 12, 2024, the two met in Riyadh with all 4 major light heavyweight titles on the line. Beterbiev won by majority decision, giving Bivol his first professional loss and becoming the undisputed champion. A rematch took place on February 22, 2025, again in Riyadh. Bivol increased his activity and maintained tighter positional control, winning a majority decision to hand Beterbiev his first career defeat and reclaim the undisputed championship.